Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the Smash Dispatch podcast. As always, I'm one of yours, Fidel, joined alongside Mr. Ultimate Shadow X. Hello.
Hello.
What's poppin'? How are you?
Good, man. Still
You're
enjoying
chilling?
Pyra Mithra. Been seeing like tons of crazy clips with them. They're so clean, dude. Like
They're
I,
so
I
cool.
just again, I cannot express my enthusiasm for playing these characters.
I
enough,
know,
man.
they're so dope. They're genuinely bro, I remember with, what's it called? Sephiroth was badass and stuff, but I feel like I played him for just a few days and I kind of moved on. With these characters, I just want to keep playing.
Like with Sephiroth, I think we talked about how he's very fun character, but he's very simple to sort of pick up and play. And not that it's a bad thing, but it's sort of once you do certain things to Sephiroth, you're I've done this before. I know what to do.
Right.
With these characters, because you have the swap, because you can do so much between the two, it sort of makes it so that there's so much more to explore with the character.
Exactly. No, they've just been it's the type of character that's made me go every night I want to just jump in 30 minutes online, just do a bunch of matches.
Practice some more.
Exactly.
I definitely feel that.
They're genuinely a blast. But speaking of Pyra and Mithra and stuff, and what's it called, Sephiroth, this week we want to have a fun topic, which I feel like it's shocking we haven't gone through this because it's such a big conversation
community meme discussion point.
Meme
exactly
discussion. And it's basically about the anime sword fighters in Smash, right? Is there a lot of them? Are they different enough? All the just I just want to sit down, let's talk about everything about them, the divisiveness of them and all that stuff. I think it would be fun. Plus here we can have a good discussion about it, not be yelling on a Twitter discussion board. But yeah,
exactly.
So when it comes to Smash Bros, obviously I'd say this discussion started in around Smash 4. Right? I feel we weren't there yet where there was enough sword characters to warrant the discussion of, are there too many? Is it being too represented, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
So I think what really happened was, I think Smash 4 was the sort of catalyst for it because that's when we got sort of, I think that's when and specifically it's because of the DLC in Smash 4.
Right,
I think when base Smash 4 was released, I think people didn't really think too much about Lucina, because I think when you think about characters that were added to base Smash 4 that had swords,
right?
There was Shulk and there was Lucina.
Yeah,
people didn't really count Robin because he was more of a mage.
Right.
So
yeah,
I remember
Robin was more mage.
People didn't really think much about Lucina. It was okay, well, it's just a different version of Marth, whatever.
Right.
There was no Roy in the game yet.
Exactly.
People really liked Ike, and I think Shulk. I think people were who? Mostly it was who is Shulk, rather than why it's another sword fighter. But then the discussion really turned, I think, with the DLC, because you had Roy, and then I think you had Corrin, probably I think Corrin was the the tipping point.
Yeah, I remember.
Where people were what the hell is this? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, because I remember. I literally remember specifically Corrin, because Corrin was the first character we got for a game that wasn't even out for us yet, right? So it was a moment of oh, we're getting another one of these characters that we don't even know who it is, and it felt very. I would say Corrin was up there as the most feeling promotional, where it's weird to get a character DLC before we even get the game, and it's kind of,
to be fair, that's exactly what happened with Roy. Roy actually was added to Melee to sort of as a bonus, but also to promote because his game was coming out. But we in the West, we obviously didn't even have the first game out, so it's not like we even thought anything about it, and he was just a cool fire sword guy. So, but what also was about Corrin was not only was that a nature of them, but the fact that, like I said, there was 2 Fire Emblem characters on DLC for Smash 4, and of course, people wanted other characters to return for Smash 4, or they wanted, there was a lot of, hype for newcomers, which new third party, blah, blah, blah. And that was another thing, actually, because now that I think about it, there was also Cloud.
Right, Cloud.
And Cloud is the de facto anime swordsman. But I think Cloud and Sephiroth are sort of removed from that conversation a lot of the time because they are iconic third party Final Fantasy characters, and they're sort of in their own league.
I feel like that's the reason I think that's the reason you have people that don't complain about wanting Dante or Sora or whatever, because I think when you're in like iconic status, you go beyond like the typical like stereotype of, oh, this is just a cool character that has a sword. Like you are like, it's like, I think that's why, because obviously like I see a lot of people, I've never seen someone say like, don't put Dante in because he has a sword, or don't put Sora because like everyone wants them in. And I think it's because they have more icon status, just like you said, like Cloud and Sephiroth. Like, I think they just have that nature.
And I think the biggest discussion point is, like, I think the stigma is because a lot of people who, aren't familiar with Fire Emblem, who sort of just look at the characters at a, like, base surface level, they're sort of like, oh, these characters are all the same because of blah, blah, blah. And disregarding, like, the actual way that they wield the weapon, I think it's just the baseline. People are just sort of tired of when they're like, oh, I'm so tired of sword fighters, it's sort of because, to be perfectly honest, and I get it, the Fire Emblem characters, a lot of them, even if their moves, even if they have different properties, or even if their moves are different in some regards, they still share a lot of the same.
They share the baseline. Yeah. Because a lot of character specials are different, but yeah, like, well, obviously, like, I mean, we have a, like Roy, Lucina, and Marth are essentially the same, aside from a few different specials.
Yeah, and then you have Crom on top of that.
Crom,
too.
yeah, exactly.
And then of course you had Corrin and Byleth, who I think most people pushback was because of the promotional nature of the character.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because because I look at Ultimates, like newcomers that have swords. Yeah, we have Chrome, we have Hero, which is another one in there. We have
Hero.
Yeah,
but
Hero.
Again,
Mithra.
Like, it's kind of funny because I think Hero was initially, people were like weapon, but now people are like, oh yeah, well, it's Dragon Quest, it's important. Like, I think now we're sort of over that hump, and I think a lot more people are sort of invested in Dragon Quest now, following that inclusion in Smash.
But it definitely still, like, it still feeds that, like, conversation point of, like, yeah, it's like, it is a character that, like, whose main weapon is a sword, like, for their for their main attacks, not their specials, and
people, and to be, it's interesting that people sort of lump in Joker into the discussion too. Like, there are people who sort of count, like, anybody who uses a sword or, like, sort of a blade in any capacity into the
some people call Steve that.
Steve is, I mean, if you think about Steve, yes, he is a sword fighter. He's not an anime sword fighter, but it's funny. Like, I mean, it's sort of, and I think it's interesting because, like, again, people don't really take the point into, like, Zelda, like,
that's
Smash
true.
Ultimate had Young Link and Toon Link, and they're basically just Link, like, with some different properties.
That's true.
Don't really, like, people sort of brush aside the other Links when they're discussing that.
The Links have that problem too. It's like, they're like, obviously, like, Link, obviously his primary weapon is the sword, but, like, obviously I know a lot of people would have loved, like, Link, because there's so many games, you could pull so many different weapons and all sorts of things from
I mean, I think that's an interesting, like, point of discussion too, is, like, I know the Fire Emblem characters, and for good reason, like I said, like, even if that's not how I feel, I understand where it comes from. Even though the Fire Emblem characters sort of all share very similar, moves and animations, it's, Fire Emblem itself, it's like, it's kind of limited what you do in terms of combat. It's not like it's an action game where they have, like, tons of things. They're just pulling from whatever they can that's in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
With the Links, I think it's more egregious because it's like, like Young Link, you have the Majora's Mask, you have these transformations, you have different items, and yet it's just, here's a slightly different Link. Like, I feel like that's a point of discussion that sort of gets sort of overlooked in the grand scheme of, like, these sword fighter meet.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's weird, obviously, because, like, especially when you think, obviously, Smash Bros, much more Japanese oriented than Western, and a lot of the biggest, like, Japanese IPs and properties have characters with swords. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a big thing. A lot of Western characters, they have guns. They do, like, more hand-to-hand combat. It's not as many, like, how many Western characters, even in Smash, have I get that. What's a Western IP with a character with a sword? I can't think of something. Exactly.
I can't think of one. Yeah,
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, it's a very Japanesey trope. And obviously, like, with Smash being heavily Japanese, that's going to happen with that. And I don't necessarily think I like what Sakurai said about them being easy to put in, because it does make it sound like they do it because it's easier. But at the same time, it is a weird argument, because I think we all get biased when it's a character we like, as opposed to a character we don't necessarily care about, and we're like, oh, okay, why, and I understand, especially as when it comes to DLC, because DLC are essentially the final sets of characters for the game. So I understand people being more upset that a character that has a type of weapon or something isn't isn't filled in with something else instead, especially because when you think also of sword fight, I think also when you just think of fighting games, right? Street Fighter is very hand to hand, or Magic and shit. Very few characters use, is there I guess
there are Street Fighter characters who use sort of weapons, but it's not their primary thing. I mean, exactly. You have I think Vega, if you're thinking in the grand scheme of a franchise, Vega is really the only person with the claw that really fights with a weapon most of the time. Yeah. I mean, you've had a few others, but it's very downplayed. You're right. Exactly. The only real big sword of fighting game is of course Soul Calibur.
Soul Calibur, yeah.
And that's not anything that's been represented in Smash. Exactly. Soul Calibur is the weapon fighting game.
And Grand Blue Fantasy Versus was all weaponry. And I think that's what it comes from too. Of most major fighting games are hand-to-hand combat characters and stuff. Whereas with Smash, it is supposed to be characters from everywhere and all that. And then they pull the sword characters. Now again, I think I will always now. I understand the argument, when it comes especially to Fire Emblem. We've talked about Fire Emblem stuff, but it's I understand that, because it's not only are they picking a lot of the sword characters from there, but Fire Emblem, you also could pull different characters. You have Dragon Masters, you have all sorts of things, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a lot of people who are I really there's too much Fire Emblem representation in Smash. And to me, it's not a matter of is there too much, it's a matter of how good is it? And honestly, I think most Fire Emblem fans will tell you, we enjoy the characters being in there, but we think it's poorly represented in Smash in the sense of a lot of the characters, they pull the sort of the same moves, y'all have the counter down B, blah blah blah. There are characters that use different weapons, that use magic, and that's why for a lot of people, Robin is such a fantastic character, because Robin, in terms of how they represent Fire Emblem, they do have a sword, but it's not their primary thing. They have a lot of magic. They have durability, like how it is in the games. They are a very accurate, very
that's a really favorite character.
And then even when we got Byleth later on, Byleth utilizes different weapons, which is what Fire Emblem fans have wanted. We where's our archer? Where's our axe wielder?
Absolutely,
why did it take until Byleth to get someone who uses different weapons, right? That's pretty much how most Fire Emblems will tell fans will tell you there are characters from the series that are equally popular that don't use swords that they could have pulled from, and they usually just go for the swords. Now, again, could that be a Sakurai thing where he's they're easier to implement? Because again, you are pulling sort of similar animations, sort of similar design space, and obviously someone like Robin there's a lot more thought and effort put into someone like Robin as opposed to we're just putting in Crom because people like Crom and he's an echo fighter.
Yeah, and again, I think also that's another thing. I think people forget that Crom wasn't we're taking a shit ton of dev time to put Crom as it's he's just they made him probably fairly quickly, because again he was an echo. It's the idea of hey, let's just literally take let's make a new character model, a new taunt or two, but we're essentially pulling from the same moveset and changing hitbox stuff. I think that to me, that's okay, because it's not they added Crom as a big newcomer and the moveset was very similar, and I'd be oh, okay, that's a little disappointing. To me, if it's an echo or it's something they were able to do easily, I'm okay, that's true, because to me, I know in my head that that's just a bonus character they were able to throw in that didn't cost another character's slot, as they say, or whatever. I think that's cool, and that's okay. Obviously Roy and Mart, even Lucina, I think these characters were all characters that didn't necessarily they didn't take too much time, and they were easy add-ins. I think that was okay with it,
Yeah, and there was a lot of especially in the case of Crom, and when they brought back Roy, those were back people those were very requested characters.
Absolutely.
Crom more so in Japan, but there's like a very passionate, like since Melee, there was like really passionate people that really loved Roy. They wanted Roy back. So some of these like sword fighters are just like, they are characters that people really, really want who happen to have swords. Like that's another thing you have to think about too.
Yeah.
Like that's like very much in the case of Pyra Mythra now, because very requested characters, people that they felt should be in the game that were probably going to be in the game. They just didn't get the time and added them back in later.
Yeah. No, and look, it's like you look at Pyra Mythra, and to me that's like the perfect way. Like I think to me that's like a perfect way to do a swordman, where it's like they have like their neutrals are using their swords and stuff, but to me it's all like with Smash, it's about like a lot of the heart of the character. To me, most of the time is the specials. That's where you get their special moves and stuff, and I think like that's why it's cool, because like when you look at the Fire Emblem characters or even Link or whatever, like actually like Link does this too, like the specials are when he pulls his Zelda style moves, and just like Mythra and Pyra, that's where they like, it's like having Photon Edge is super badass, having the blast from the air is really dope, and having like the obviously you have the switch up mechanic, you have the neutral B that's like this massive sword attack, and then with Pyra you have the same thing where you have like the sort of fire blast, you get the flame nova spin, and it's like I think while obviously like they're, like I said, very sword oriented characters, the moveset is really fun enough to kind of like warrant that, because again like it's a like I think at the end of the day the what we always talk about, and what Sakurai says and all this, is like it's about an interesting moveset, and if you could pull an interesting moveset, I don't care what weapon or thing you wield.
Yeah, and I do have to say that I feel like they have really been good about sort of expanding the design space as of Ultimate, because I feel like in Ultimate there aren't a lot of like in terms of like newcomers and how they've reworked older characters. There's not a lot of characters that fill like the same design space. Like, like in terms of the newcomers and who they add. Like again, like it's unfortunate that Young Link is pretty much the same. That Toon Link is the same. That a lot of the Fire Emblem characters are pretty much the same. Yeah. But in terms of like the new characters added, like Sephiroth does not feel like Cloud, and Cloud does not feel like Sephiroth, and vice versa.
They're completely
and
different.
And Pyra and Mythra don't feel like Shulk, and Shulk they've been improving since Smash 4 on terms of making sure the sword characters feeling it. Because again, like Violet, I feel like they could have 100%. They could have fucked up Violet super bad, but they actually put in the thought and effort to be like, okay, let's actually do the different weapons and blah blah blah. Because again, like. A lot of people are tired of a lot of the same design, and personally, like me especially, I've talked about this before. It's probably just because it's an easy to implement thing, and it sometimes fits for the character. Right. But down B counters are like my most hated thing on a newcomer. I feel like it's so like just thoughtless and easy to do. And I just hate down B counters. Yeah. I feel like they haven't really been stepping onto that territory as badly as they have recently. Like, Sephiroth and Joker have it, and they could have done something different. But like again, it doesn't feel like it's just down B counter every single time.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No. It's definitely like it's a hard. The down B counter thing is definitely, I understand. And I think that's where the argument stems from. It's like all these little moves that are very similar that they're, because like you think of like Shulk. I do think Shulk, aside from obviously the changing the properties of the wheel, he is like all his moves are just like a sword attack, like a very basic sword attack, Yeah,
Shulk sort of got off lucky because he had the self buff modifiers. Yeah. I think if he didn't have something like that, he would just I agree. He would probably just feel like another like Sword of Fire Emblem character. Like to be perfectly honest with you. Yeah. It doesn't matter how. Even though the way he maneuvers his sword is pretty unique, like, he would have just felt like that. I feel like it's the same for sort of Cloud, because even his side B dot, the cross slash, it's kind of just like the dancing blade on Marth and Roy, if you really think about it.
Yeah, exactly, it is.
Because he has the limit, and it sort of modifies his moves exactly. So there's like little things like that. But I feel like I said, since Smash 4, they've been like vastly improving on making sure every character feels unique. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, and again, it's funny because like. Even like we talked about, like there's 2 character slots left, presumably and stuff. It's like, again, a lot of the characters people want 2B as a sword fighter, right? People want, like I said, Dante. He's got other weapons, which is good. He's got a sword. Sora obviously heavily requested. He's a sword fighter, so it's like inherently a lot of like the most requested characters in Smash have like some sort of weapon of some kind there, and I think also like I think another thing is people want different weapons to be represented. Like, again, we've talked about this. There isn't a spear fighter in Smash, and I understand, like, it is like a spear. You know, you can't do that much with it, but obviously an interesting moveset's an interesting moveset. And I think that's kind of another thing with it, right? Like
like there are a lot of weapon types that aren't necessarily like super represented in Smash, and like I get it, like you know, you just see a sword and it's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna fight another disjointed hitbox person,
exactly,
just another big sword, but like. Yeah, like you can do a lot of cool things with like, you know, there's interesting design space with characters who utilize unique weapons. Like you say, you know, you got spear fighter, like sure he has the axe on some of his attacks, but he doesn't really like use it most of the time. Like, you know, you have stuff like, you know, that's why like I really like the Belmonts. Like I feel like,
Belmonts are good.
There wasn't anyone who fought with a whip like that, and that was a really good, you know, good choice there. Like. And we don't really, like, again, another thing that always gets brought up is, like, there's no FPS, sort of no, like, shooter character. There's not really anyone, now, it's most likely because, you know, they have the age rating. There's not really anyone who really fights with guns, because, like, you know, that was Snake's thing. Like, Snake could be in the game, but he has to fight with explosives. And Joker's gun isn't real. He doesn't really use it. There's not really, like, a blaster, like I guess it has to be like a laser gun or something, like, you know, that keep the rating down character. I mean, Bayonetta, sure, but she mostly is swinging. She's not really shooting most of the time. You know what I mean? Like we're talking like a strict projectile. I guess like Mega Man. Like you have Mega Man. That's pretty much it. You know what I mean? Mega Man is all projectiles and that's it. And that's sort of his shtick. But there's not really any other character besides Mega Man that really plays like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, it's like I think, I mean, ultimately, is the moveset interesting? I would say, for the most part, most of the sword fighters have an interesting moveset. I would say that. I wouldn't, again, like I said, I'm not saying they're perfect, but I'd say a lot of them do have a solid representation just because of how Smash is just well made as a game, you know, and how Sakurai gets nerdy with it.
Yeah, I do say, like, you know, we talk time and time again about, you know, it's unfortunate how some of the Fire Emblem characters are, but a lot of them do feel like different characters when you play them. Like, you know, even as someone who like, you know, am I a huge fan of, like, you know, some of these characters? No, but it's like, I play them and it's like, they feel different enough from each other to sort of warrant that they are their own unique character.
Right.
And it is nice that we did get sort of like more elaboration with like with the Echo Fighters.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like these characters are just like, oh, they're eating a slot, which is like, that's sort of a misnomer to begin with. But it feels better to have them be an Echo Fighter. You know what I mean? It's sort of an emotional thing where it's like, okay, they're sort of a bonus on the side, you know.
And I think also, like, I think where the issue, like, not the issue, where like the argument stems is real, like I said before, it's specifically when it's DLC characters. Because again, like, you look at the base game, like, most characters don't use a sword. Like, you know, like, you know, you got every single character.
Even in Smash 4, like I said, like, a lot of the newcomers were not really sword based. Like, and same with like Ultimate, like the base, like a new, like I said, I've always said this, like the base, if Ultimate just released as it was and had no DLC, that would have been like, I would have been happy. Like, this is just basing on the capable we're getting, but like the base roster, like, they really fulfilled like a lot of like fan characters that barely anyone used a sword in there. You know, you had like Piranha Plant and K. Rool and Isabelle, like all those.
Inklings, Incineroar. Ridley, the
discussion really turns is when it's related to DLC, because to a lot of people, and I sort of get this, like a lot of people are like, DLC to them is like, these are who can we add to round out the game and that people really want. Like people sort of think about, like, you know, who's been a requested character that we couldn't fit in that, you know, we'll sell as DLC. That's sort of how people see it as. And that's why a DLC character holding a sword feels worse to a lot of people, because it's like, oh, this is like your last chance to add someone like, you know, like Crash or like blah blah blah, and you're not doing it, you're doing this, you know.
And again, it's I think, like I said, most of the new ones don't, but the argument comes from that. And again, I think, especially like we said, obviously, no matter what, Smash is just a game that attracts a lot of eyes, even to people that don't play the game, just because obviously it's like bringing IPs from all over the world. So you have way more noise around it, you know, even though it isn't that big of a deal.
Right, because I think, and this sort of like relates to how, you know, people were like, oh, like, you know, original, I want Smash, like, so I saw some people who were like, Smash sort of like has lost its way, and like because the original Smash had all these mascot characters, mascot platforming characters. People want sort of more of those cartoony mascot characters, and I feel like it's sort of people have this sort of misconception about sort of what Smash is, and I feel like Smash today is very different than Smash, like what Smash 64 and Melee was.
Right.
Because back in 64 and Melee, it was sort of like, we're gonna just put in Nintendo IPs.
Yeah.
And and we want to promote our Nintendo IPs. And then when Brawl opened the floodgates with third parties with Snake and Sonic, that's when that's when Smash sort of started being like, this is a celebration of icons in gaming. But prior to that, it was just, here's our Nintendo IPs to promote our Nintendo games.
Right.
And then, like I said, with Brawl, with Sonic and Snake, it was like, okay, maybe it can be something more. Maybe it can be about sort of the bigger gaming sphere. And so people sort of see it as like, Smash is like a gaming Valhalla. It's the icons, it's the legacy of gaming.
Yeah.
And even though, it does celebrate gaming, it still is a promotional tool at the end of the day. Some characters, will feel more promotional than others.
Right.
But obviously, it's still being there to promote either an IP or to sort of have a company promote their IP in the game while celebrate or giving fans what they want, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I mean?
And
people will say like, oh, for example, like, oh, is Smash really all about promotion when like, they added Banjo? Where, Banjo, it's not like there's a new Banjo game coming out, but Microsoft, Xbox sales went up in Japan because of Sakurai in the presentation. Like, you can only play it on Xbox. You should check it out. And people bought Xboxes in Japan. So
people are buying. I've seen a shit ton of people buying Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Like, whether people I know are just like Japanese sales rise.
Oh, but Minecraft is bigger than Smash.
Yeah.
So how is that promotion? I mean, but yes, because people who like Minecraft will see Steve is in this game. I want to check it out, and then they'll buy Smash. Promotion in the other direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I played Minecraft because Steve got in, which is that's what they want, and I think obviously that's a whole different like can of worms, like the conversation of like.
But the only reason I brought that up is sort of it's relevant to the sword fighter thing because a lot of people are like, oh, they only put in like the Japanese, characters and from anime swordsmen to promote, because it's promotion and blah blah blah. And I missed the old Smash, which was just the mascot characters, and there weren't as many sword fighters. And I was, I bring that up because it's sort of a misconception because Smash was always a promotional tool first, and it didn't really get to be the gaming celebration it was until later. You know what I mean?
I mean, again, like Sakurai said this, like Nintendo gives them a list of characters. Like, he can't just be like.
Now it's like that's even in the related. It's like it's not even sure if it's like if Nintendo's straight up telling him or if he's going off the list because it's sort of vague. But like he doesn't have as much choice as people think he does.
Right. Exactly. Like obviously, Sakurai does his best with the team to make the most accurate representation of the character. But ultimately, he can't go free ball pick whoever we want. It's ultimately still Nintendo be like, hey. These are our characters that we've talked to that can get in there. Can you make an interesting moveset for them? Because he said before that, hey, if we can't make an interesting moveset, we don't do it. We only do it if we really think we want to and stuff. But it's like, I think also a big thing is, what am I trying to say here? Oh, it's like, it comes to also, like I said, we said cultural stuff. Like, you look at the infamous E3 thing where you looked at Japanese reaction videos where in Japan they were like Banjo, like a lot of them were, oh, okay, cool. But then when they saw here, they're like, holy shit. Whereas a lot of people here, it was the opposite, where people were losing their minds about Banjo. And the Hero trailer came up, they're like, oh, they're adding the Hero of Dragon Quest. Okay, cool. So it's like, I think that's another big thing of like, there's just cultural like differences for fanfare. Like, it's like, it was funny, especially with Mythra Pyre reactions, where like for here. It's like if you played Xenoblade 2, you were losing it. But if you didn't, you're like, because you've heard of them most likely if you're playing Smash. So you were just like, oh, it's good. So it really, I think, obviously, at the end of the day, it all boils down to just like what you like, what you care about. And as you said before, it boils down to that, and also boils down to the pre-existing status of the character. Right.
Mythra and Pyra. are nowhere near on the level of icon as Sephiroth.
Absolutely
Nobody
not.
said, "Oh, I'm so tired of anime swordsman when Sephiroth got
No one
revealed."
said
Everyone
that.
was like, "Holy shit, it's Sephiroth!" You know?
Exactly. I think that's what it is. I think it's when it's a smaller franchise, you know, like because obviously it's like Fire Emblem is big, but it's not like there yet. You know, it's not like it's not a 5+ million sale.
It is.
You know?
It's been getting
there.
up there on that upward tick. And it's gonna keep going up, but it definitely was not on the same status as a lot of other franchises at that point.
Exactly. Yeah. Even Xenoblade.
So, like, again, like it's really a matter of like how relevant, like how much exposure you've had to something prior to. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's again, I totally get it because like again, I'm lucky enough that like most of the sword characters in the game like are from games that I really like and I'm happy about them being in there. But again, I understand if you're not a fan of, you know, JRPG or tactical games or whatever that you're like, oh, okay, like there's a lot of this in this game. So I feel for people that like it's like I don't like to dismiss people that are like that get annoyed by stuff. Like I get where they're coming from, but at the same time, like to me, it always boils down to this Smash of like, I just can't humanly complain with a game that has like 80 characters and most of them don't have a sword either.
Right?
You know?
Yeah, like I said, like the DLCs is all this like the extra icing on the cake. Like if the game just launched with the characters it did, I think everyone would have been extremely happy. Like especially who they chose as the newcomers, which were like such fan requested characters. But yeah, and again, like I think it is important to not be dismissive in either direction. Like I agree, like you know, it's your opinion. If you feel like let down, like okay, like yeah, sure, you have every right to feel that way. Exactly. Like it's just a matter of like how you act on that feeling. You know, again, like there are people who will talk down people in either direction. Like oh, you should be more grateful, or oh, like you're just eating up whatever you're a shill. Like that's like sort of the behavior we don't want. But it's okay to express how you feel. If it's just that's just my emotion. You know, like again, it's like. Again, there are 80 characters. This game is huge, and it's just at the end of the day, it's just a game you play for fun. Like you don't, it's not serious. Like it's not serious.
And also, swords are cool. Like swords are a cool fucking thing.
Yeah, it's
They're
true.
Cool
it's
shit.
true. Yeah,
like
for sure.
There's very few characters with a sword that I don't think are like a fucking badass character, especially if they're doing cool moves with the sword. Yeah, I mean, it's like a sword is inherently cool. You know, like the design of a sword is super badass. The move it does, like everything about a sword is inherently badass. Yeah, I mean, like I think that's like a big deal. Like that's why like most people are still cool with it and they like it because like there's something about just holding that dope ass weapon that you want, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of a fantasy style thing you like in there. And again, like I said, it's like I think it really boils down to, like we said, status, like how popular is the franchise? Because again, I know nobody's gonna complain if they see Sora. Like you're gonna have some weebs that don't like Kingdom Hearts, but you're gonna see the world fucking freak out about that. Same with Dante. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And again, to me it's about the specials. Like if the specials are different enough, I'm cool with it. You know, I don't mind because like then I have different moves I can pull from, you know? Like my favorite moves with Mythopire aren't their fucking isn't the neutral air that does the spin that a lot of characters do, or you know, it's the special moves, it's the photon edge, it's the fucking the all these moves, you know?
Yeah, it's about the specials and about the mechanics.
Yeah.
And like that's how like I think the biggest thing, like I was in the same boat and I still feel this way. I hate when Corn was revealed for Smash, and to this day, I still feel like that was a fucking mistake. Like I fucking hate Corn. Like even as a Fire Emblem fan, I'm a Fire Emblem fan, and I play Fates. And even though my opinion of Fates has shifted towards like, yeah, the gameplay is enjoyable. I sort of see what people really like in this game. I still hate Corrin. But that being said, you know who my main in Smash 4 was? Corrin. Because their special moves were cool. You get the Dragon Bite, they get Dragon Moves when they go on the up team, they have the pin into the ground. I was like, this character I really gel with. I love their moves. I think they're super fun to play. And even if I still like, you know, I'm not a big fan of Corrin, I enjoyed playing them because of the special moves. They felt very satisfying for me to play.
I mean, it's like again, hero.
Like me as a person, because I'm very focused on, you know, on more competitive stuff. I'm focused on how a character plays and what their moves are. Like even if it's a character I'm not excited for, if they play in a way that I really like playing, I'll play as them. It doesn't matter who they are. You know what I mean? And I understand that some people are more like emotional in terms of like they want those characters they're really attached to, that they grew up with, they want to see them in Smash, and I really understand that too.
Right, exactly. Sure. Yeah, no, it's yeah, it's an ongoing debate and stuff. It always will be, I think. But overall, I still think it's well represented and well done in there. Yeah. So yeah, I think we mostly said everything. I don't know if you got anything else to say about the whole thing.
I will say I think the perfect end note is how in the Byleth reveal trailer they lampshaded the whole discussion with Sothis being like, oh, no, there's too many swordsmen are there for you.
That was so cool.
Like,
yeah, I love that.
I don't know if that's what she said in the Japanese version. It could have just been like a localization joke, but it was still like, I thought,
it's great.
To me personally, I thought that was the funniest thing that they could have said for Byleth in particular.
It's so cool.
It was just like, Sakurai's at the end of the day, Sakurai's aware. Like, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And to him, he sort of sees it in a different light. I think that's all
I mean, we know,
say.
like, aside from the Mithra one, he writes the scripts for these, for the trailers. So he definitely knew what he was doing there. So, yeah, no, overall, cool stuff. I mean, we got a lot of characters, a lot of love in there. So, yeah, that's mostly it, guys. So, guys, let us know in the comments stuff what you think about the sword fight debate. Which ones you like, what do you like about it, don't like, and all that stuff. And of course, you can follow Ultima at Ultima Shadowx. You can follow me on the down low, though. You can subscribe here for more and all that jazz. And of course, we'll see you all next time. Peace out.
Peace out.